Welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever just assumed that the computers running our digital world are these flawless machines of pure, unyielding logic? I mean, we all kind of tend to trust that right beneath our screens, everything is built on this absolute, rock-solid foundation of exact mathematics. But today, we are going to completely shatter that illusion. We're going to dive deep into the actual silicon metal of your computer's processor to expose a pretty shocking reality. The digital world that we trust with our finances, our laws, and our art is fundamentally built on microscopic hardware-level guesswork.
Okay, let's dive into this. 80 to 90%. Just let that sink in for a second. That massive number represents the estimated percentage of modern AI compute cycles that are actually just hardware-level approximations. They literally aren't exact math at all. When massive language models and high-speed trading algorithms are doing all their heavy lifting, the physical engine driving them isn't actually calculating absolute ground truth reality. It's making highly educated guesses simply so it can process huge mountains of continuous data incredibly quickly.
To really wrap our heads around how profound this is, check out this quote from researcher Kyle McLean-Smith. He absolutely hits the nail on the head here. He says, "It's fundamentally an approximation system, not real arithmetic." The entire foundation of these massive AI matrix operations is just an estimation system. It's physically bound to make guesses just to keep up with the sheer volume of data it has to chew through. It literally lacks hardware-level mathematical consistency. Crazy, right?
Section 1. Meet computational Chet, the FPU gambler.
So to understand why your computer is actually out there guessing, we got to meet the central antagonist of our hardware story. Let's call him computational Chet. In the world of computer engineering, he's known as the floating point unit, or as we like to say, the FPU gambler. Now, Chet processes heavy, complex math unbelievably fast. But the catch? He doesn't do real, rigorous math. It's kind of like he's a frantic gambler throwing darts at a dartboard blindfolded, just trying to approximate the answer. He's constantly missing the exact mark of mathematical truth. And to pull off this blistering speed, chip manufacturers actually burn these completely secret proprietary mathematical seed tables directly into the physical silicon to help him make those guesses.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is exactly how Chet pulls off these physical guesses. You see, continuous numbers in the real world have infinite decimals, right? But computer hardware only has a finite amount of memory. So looking at step 2, Chet is forced to squeeze continuous, real-world numbers into these tiny, fixed digital boxes. And he does this by just dropping tiny fractions, a standard move known as the 23rd bit chop. He literally just throws those microscopic trailing decimals away to force the numbers to fit. And in step 3, as you can see, dropping those fractions is exactly why he misses the mark. It causes the calculation to irreversibly drift away from absolute mathematical truth.
And this limitation triggers what experts call non-deterministic drift. Now, in total isolation, chopping off a 23rd decimal bit might seem totally harmless. But modern systems are running billions of concurrent operations. Over millions of transactions, those microscopic rounding errors violently compound. And because the underlying seed tables used for this are closely guarded corporate trade secrets, an Intel chip and an ARM chip will actually give you slightly different answers to the exact same equation. There is literally no way you can guarantee the exact same mathematical outcome twice.
Section 2, the erasure of true sin.
Okay, so this brings us to a frankly massive legal and philosophical crisis. Because if our machines are fundamentally just guessing right down at the hardware level, what happens to our exact human intent when it passes through that system? Well, to answer that, we need to talk about hatchiatity, or what the sources refer to as true sin. Hatchiatity translates to thisness. It is the absolute undeniable existence, uniqueness, and totally irreversible realization of human intent. It's that exact, provable history that anchors your digital actions firmly into physical reality.
In the worlds of law and creation, you'll often hear this referred to as the sweat of the brow. It's this traditional principle granting protection and ownership based purely on the biological labor, the sheer physical effort, and the exact human intent that an author pours into a work. True sin absolutely requires this physical human effort to explicitly force the machine to execute exactly what was designed, not just what happens to be statistically probable at the time. This is what creates a perfect, verifiable chain of title.
So the crucial point is this. When we hand our hard-earned data over to Chet, his whole probabilistic guessing game completely liquidates that data provenance. By lazily chopping those 33 bits and leaning on hardware estimations, this probabilistic drift triggers the complete and total erasure of hiacidity. That undeniable mark of human authorship, the sweat of the brow, gets permanently lost in this automated fog of statistical noise. The exact mathematical path back to you, the human creator, is just broken forever.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds, the deterministic sin kernel. Fortunately, we actually have an exact antidote to all this guessing. We really don't have to surrender our reality to check. Meet the ALU surveyor, formerly known as the arithmetic logic unit. If Chet is a chaotic, blindfolded gambler, the ALU is a strict surveyor wielding a high-end precision laser that hits the exact mark every single time. The ALU deals strictly in 100% exact, universally verifiable hardware truths. It only uses whole numbers and pure integer arithmetic. In the ALU's world, 1 + 1 equals exactly 2. Every single time, on every single machine, on planet Earth. Yes, it is slower, for sure, but it offers absolute mathematical perfection.
And we can harness the power of this surveyor using what the sources call the deterministic sin kernel. I want you to picture the sin kernel as an uncompromising, super strict logical bouncer, standing right at the front door of your digital ledger. This bouncer absolutely refuses to guess. No way. If data tries to overwrite a space without exact verified permission, the bouncer violently rejects the input. It maintains absolute digital truth by completely eliminating any room for ambiguity.
And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast in our digital architecture today. On one side, we've got computational Chet, the FPU gambler. He's incredibly fast, he's probabilistic, but he's constantly missing the exact mark by dropping those microscopic fractions. But then on the other side, we have the sin kernel and the ALE surveyor. Rigid, deterministic, perfectly exact, and hitting the mark with absolute fidelity every single time you call on it.
If you look at the table here, the divergence in outcomes is honestly wild. If you input exact math into Chet, his output just spits back fractured, lossy fractions because of that 23rd bit chop. But the sin kernel, it outputs pure, globally verifiable truth. And if you input your exact human intent, like your copyrighted art, your code, or a financial ledger, Chet's hardware approximations scramble it into probabilistic noise, totally erasing you as the author. The sin kernel, however, preserves the sweat of the brow perfectly, keeping your chain of title entirely intact.
Section 4. Reclaiming our digital reality.
So what does this all mean for us? How do we actually survive this era of probabilistic hardware noise and stop the machine from liquidating our identity? Well, we have to step up. For all you focused learners out there who are building and using these systems, the mandate is pretty clear. First, we absolutely have to reject FPU guessing for critical high-stakes tasks. Second, we need to actively enforce strict ALU deterministic fidelity using rigid, structured text. Third, we have to manually step back into the loop. You can't just lazily rely on a probabilistic machine's first output anymore. You have to apply the sweat of the brow by manually pruning the corrupted data yourself. And finally, you must act as the sovereign pilot, demanding the machine execute exactly what you designed.
As these massive statistical engines get woven deeper and deeper into our legal, financial, and creative lives, remember, you are the steward of the machine. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on today. Will you quietly remain a digital tenant, just renting blurry, lossy guesses from computational Chet? Or will you grasp the sword of strict text, apply the sweat of your brow, and ride as the sovereign orchestrator demanding exact truth from the machine? Ultimately, the choice of how we command the future depends entirely on your answer. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember, always look past the screen.